Hello, and welcome back to the second episode of the Triple Dose. I am Ben,
I am Sarah. And I'm Heather.
and we are here today to talk about something that people don't like talking about, but it definitely exists, and that is skinny privilege. Before we get onto it, though, I will just say we're going to start off all our podcasts the same, get the boring bit out of the way. Nothing we say is medical advice. And if you are thinking about starting your very own weight loss journey with any types of medications, please do speak to a GP or a registered pharmacy in the UK. That's all we are. But now the boring bit's out of the way, we're going to talk all things skinny privilege, and that is definitely something that I have fallen into since falling down the weight. And we thought we'd do an episode on it. So Heather's got a brief summary below of what Google tells us it is. So what's it saying, Heather?
I feel like Sarah, because I have my very own iPad, so I literally feel like I've stepped up in the world. I don't know.
It's a game changer, isn't it?
It says
Game
it's my
changer.
daughter's iPad, but she won't mind. So Google says, thin privilege. It's a set of social advantages that thin people have due to prejudice against heavier or less lean people. For instance, because society values thinness, people in smaller bodies may experience social benefits like making friends more easily, accessing structural advantages such as finding well-fitting clothes in more stores and appropriately sized seats on public transportation. So that is kind of touching on, I think, the things that we want to speak about. But that's it in a nutshell. So it's the way that larger people are perceived versus the way that smaller people are perceived, people in less fat bodies, I guess we could say.
Yeah. And do you feel, since you've gone from a larger frame to your current frame, have you noticed any, what are the things that have stuck with either of you guys? Because I've definitely got a lot in my head of things that I've noticed. Anything comes immediately to your heads?
I think people are generally nicer. They're generally more accommodating than they were previously. And before, like when I was bigger, I wouldn't say that people were rude, but it felt like a lot of times you were invisible, or they wouldn't really acknowledge you in that bigger body. Whereas now, all of a sudden, people want to make conversation. Do you know what I mean? They're very pleasant. And part of me resents that a wee bit because I think, like, why is it like that? Do you know what I mean? It feels really unfair that you have to meet a certain body type or body shape for people to want to speak to you in a certain way.
It's almost like a social standard, isn't it, that people perceive, of each other. For me, I think my most recent one was I work from home, so going to the office is very few and far between. But when I do go to the office, which is probably once in every couple of months, the last time I went, the amount of people that complimented me, and this goes back to what you were saying, Heather, like people are genuinely nicer to you, that, I never heard them compliment me when I was on the plus size, on the bigger size. So hearing that, someone has said, "Oh, you look good today," "Oh, that dress looks good on you," "Oh," even to people have commented and said, "You look amazing, you've lost weight," which, yes, is a lovely thing to hear, but in the same breath, it's kind of like, oh, it's a bit of a backhanded compliment, isn't it, as well?
Yeah. And it's nice, like you say, it's nice to hear those things about yourself and for people just to be generally nicer. But yeah, it kind of sticks in my throat a wee bit, and I'm like, well, why does it have to be this way? But it is. Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure people that are listening that are at the stage where they've lost a significant amount of weight will be nodding along because it just simply is a fact. Like, this exists, whether we like it or not.
I agree. I went to my pharmacy the other day to pick up my prescription, and the lady came running over, and she's been there years, lovely lady, and I know she doesn't mean anything by it, but she was like, sorry, I just needed to butt in and say, like, you look incredible. And I was like, oh, well, thank you very much. She was like, you just look amazing. And again, like, that is lovely to hear, but no one's going to come over and say, you look amazing. And I think there's no malice in that. There's no, it's not you look amazing now, but you didn't before. People just, again, in society, when they notice you've lost weight, it's straight away, you look amazing, you look great, and it makes you think, so I didn't before. And then she did, to be fair, she did make me laugh, and it's a bit dark humor, but she did say to me, she was like, oh my God, I'm sorry, like, are you ill? And I was like, no, I'm not ill.
Oh,
She's like, I just
wow.
needed to check that. I was like, no, it's fine. I was like, I was like, whoa, like, for a full 360.
Yeah.
But I think kind of going off that skinny privilege, the biggest thing that anyone that's listening to this is going to notice is, first things first, shopping. Shopping when you are skinnier is so much easier. It's less stressful, and actually it's enjoyable, because you are shopping for a body that you have worked for, or a body that you are proud to wear clothes on. And so for me, the biggest skinny privilege bit is shopping.
Oh, for sure. For sure, yeah. And like you say, it's just it's a much more enjoyable experience. Because I think at a bigger size, like, you can't just walk into a shop and pick up clothes. You
So
just
it's
can't, the sizes
interesting.
aren't there.
It's interesting that you've both gone to, I presume, Ben, you've gone to you meant clothes shopping. I've gone to food shopping. Like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so even like when I was on the plus size, putting things into my trolley, I've walked past a good few people that have kind of looked at my trolley, then looked at me, and they've seen that my food basket or trolley or whatever it is or was, never contained a salad, lettuce leaf, or bloody barb of cucumber, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Contained crisps and chocolate and take like fast food, ready meals, and whatever was quick and convenient for me. But now I walk in, and even though, yes, I still put a bar of chocolate in my basket, and I still have that bottle of Coke in my basket, I don't get that same side-eye look from
The
past
judgment.
times. The
Yeah.
judgment, yeah.
Yeah.
Mine was putting stuff onto the conveyor belt. So if somebody was behind me, and I used to, I have a very, very sweet tooth. So I used to go to like B&M or Home Bargains or something like that. And I'd do like a weekly kind of treat cupboard refill. So I'd buy like packs of toffee crisps and biscuits and, cans of Coke. And the conveyor belt just looked like a tuck shop. And I used to think, like, the people behind me, you could sort of see them looking at it going like, well, that's probably why you're the size that you are.
And
And
were these same people looking at somebody in a thin body at the contents of the conveyor belt or the basket or whatever and thinking the same thing? Probably not.
No.
and I wouldn't. And I wouldn't. And that kind of that goes on to perhaps a whole different podcast of if you're skinny, are you healthy? Which I think we live in this world where if you look at someone that's skinny, the automatic reaction is they're healthy, and that's why they're that size. And actually, I've met many skinny people. I have skinny people in my family that are not at all healthy. They just are graced with an amazing metabolism, and they just can't gain weight. So yeah, that's for me. I really like that, Sarah, because I went straight to clothes, but actually, more importantly, actually food shopping.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have experienced the clothes side as well. But yeah, food shopping I think that's definitely the one core memory, I suppose, of being a plus size woman that I just remember as fresh as anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the clothes thing, like, obviously I can't speak for men's clothing. I'm not in that section. However, I know when we talk about women's clothing, if you are plus size, your options for clothes are limited. your options for buying clothes in a shop, physically buying them, are even more limited. All the plus size ranges that were in these shops have either been dwindled away to a tiny amount, or they just don't exist in the store anymore. So your only option is buying stuff online. And who wants to do that all the time? Like, part of the joy of buying clothes and, you know, finding clothes that fit you well is going into the changing room and actually trying them on. And you just are not given that privilege being a plus size person. You just don't have that. And what you do have, the plus size shops that are available are overpriced. They have clothes of a certain style in them that you might not want to wear, or you feel like you've been pigeonholed into certain types of clothes. It's not an enjoyable experience. And somebody who has never been on the other end of that, who has never been in a larger body, might be listening to this like, what? Like, is that a thing? But yeah, it's something that you wouldn't think about until you've been on both sides of it.
Yeah, you kind of, them shops that you're referring to, I find that they're more targeted to a certain age group as well.
Yeah.
I want comfy clothes, not revealing clothes,
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you there. It's it was very hit and miss with the opportunity and the range that we had. But what's it like with the men's clothes, Ben? Was it similar experience?
I think, well, men's clothes is a bit different. Perhaps, I don't know, maybe these shops think that men are just bigger. Because, you know, there was always a big selection of either tiny, like extra small, because ours are obviously done like extra small, medium, large, or they'd have like 5XL. So the in-between sizes that I needed at the time was like 2XL and 3XL, were very, very few and far between. And most of the time I ended up, a lot of my clothes, I would just buy plain black t-shirts from M&S, and their you know, bog standard black skinny jeans. I lived in black skinny jeans and black t-shirts. And I had to always go to the counter because they never had 2XL or 3XL. But they'd have an extra small, or they'd have a small or a medium. So that was rubbish. That was really rubbish, because you just feel like when you're going up to the counter and you're like, hi, can I order this in a 2XL, please, or a 3XL? Like, I don't know. It just made me feel like quite embarrassed.
Yeah.
Or I pick up like suit trousers. Suit trousers for men are the worst, because I swear the sizes on them, even to this day, now I've lost a lot of weight, I still think they're wrong. You put them on and I swear you have to go up like 2 or 3 sizes in bloody suit trousers. And I was going up to the till and I was like, oh, sorry, could I order like a 42, you know, special order, which made me feel even worse. So yeah, men's selection isn't great. If you shop in places like River Island, you are pigeonholed as, you know, everybody wants muscle fit or slim fit. And when you're bigger, you don't want muscle fit and slim fit, because all that does is cling to places you don't want it to cling to. And again, when you're in a skinnier body like we are now, you know, I can go into River Island and I can just pick up a medium t-shirt and I can put on. And actually, 99% of what I bought recently, I have not tried on first. I don't know about you guys, but I have not been to the changing rooms. Whereas before, a 2XL is very different in New Look than it is in River Island. And like some 2XLs were really nice and roomy and some were tight. So everything I bought was a chore, because I had to go to the change rooms. I had to try them on. Whereas now I just pick up a medium and go, that'll fit.
Do you both find that as you've dropped down in sizes, though, that the sizes that you are now aren't always necessarily available still? So I'm, depending on where I shop, like what you said, Ben, I can range between a 12 to a 14, but I find that they're quite popular sizes for us women.
They are.
So going to a shop now, I'll see the 18s are still there, which is where I would have been at the back of the hangers. But the 12 and 14s that I am now, then they're just sold out. They're just not there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do agree. It's written that's another thing. I mean, that's probably the bad side of being what the norm, as we call it, because sizes aren't always available now because of a different reason, because everyone, 80% of the population want that size now.
I know. And then add into the mix, as a woman, you could try on 4 different pairs of jeans from the same shop, and they would all be the same size. Yeah, 2 pairs would fit you. The other 2 would be either too small or too big. And that is like another mind-boggling moment for me when I go shopping, because you think, right, I'm a 14 now, brilliant. And you go into the shop, you're trying a 14, you're like, no, that's nowhere near. And then you're going through that like internal, like, am I actually a 14? Am I still the size I was before? But it's not. It's just there's so much variance in the same size of clothes shop to shop. So that's another thing that you have to add into the mix, which is great.
Yeah.
I think
Headache.
like the next bit for me was like traveling. So I actually I did my first plane journey since losing weight was actually going up to Glasgow to see I was with Sarah, and we went up and saw Heather, and it was a lovely, lovely weekend. And I just remember getting onto the plane and sitting down and just buckling my seatbelt up. I had room. I didn't feel like I was spilling over because my body now fitted into a very specific size.
Our hips were not touching in them seats together, were they? We had
Wow.
plenty of room between each other.
Which before I was so subconscious about, because I was like, oh my God, they're going to like, it was just like, you sat in your seat ready at like window seat, and someone comes along and they're next to you. And I just thought, I know exactly what they're thinking. I just know what they're thinking. Oh, great, I'm next to him.
Yeah.
And now I don't, again, it's like that skinny privilege. Like, you don't think that.
It's so
'Cause
anxiety provoking, isn't it, though? Like,
Yeah.
a plane journey, like, I find it quite a stressful experience anyway, not to do anything, like, with nothing to do with my size. But, like, as a bigger person, going on a flight, you're thinking, like, if you're traveling on your own, like, who's going to be sat next to me? How are they going to feel? I'm thinking about, the bit in between the seats with a little, like, armrest. It would never sit flat when I was in a seat because I was over into the next seat. So it would always be pinging up, and they'd be like, put the armrest down. I'm like, I'm trying. And then when it was time to get a meal and then you put the tray table down, it would never come right down. So it's like tilted. Do you know what I mean? It's not sitting flat. Oh God, honestly, so stressful.
Well, you sound stressed just talking about it.
No, I'm reliving it.
Like, literally. And that's, again, it goes back to the whole point of what we're talking about with skinny privilege. Because as a skinnier person, we get onto a plane and the tray table comes down and we strap ourselves in, and we don't need any sort of seatbelt extenders. And that's just embarrassing in itself to ask for something like that.
Yeah.
Concert seats, again, I went and saw a big show near me recently, and again walked in, sat down, didn't even think about it. Whereas before, I'd go to like a concert or something like that, and I was thinking, great, the person either side of me is going to be thinking, oh great, I'm sat next to him. I'd be uncomfortable throughout because you have to almost wedge yourself in the seat. And again, skinny privilege. I don't think like that anymore.
Yeah.
So,
And theatre seats are particularly bad for that, aren't they? They are so narrow.
Yeah.
Like, they're pretty much, like, if you are a certain size and not even that big, I feel like a lot of theatres are really old. So, like, obviously people have got larger as time's gone on. So they're very, very narrow. So it's basically anybody of a certain size, you can't go to the theatre. Like, that is like, it's closing in your world in a lot of ways, isn't it? Like, it's just things that you can't do, or that are you really have to think about.
yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. Other things, I'm trying to think. I was just, while you were talking, Heather, I was like, what's the other things? For full transparency to anyone that's listening, annoyingly, we have already recorded this episode, and we have lost it because we are new to this and we're amateurs. So I'm trying, and it was such a good episode, and it was so good.
Thanks, Ian. And because I thought, yes, we've done it, I delete my notes. So yeah, and I think we're doing well so far.
I think we've remembered most of what we spoke about, but I was in my head, I'm going, there was something else we mentioned, and it was really good, and I'm like, what was it?
Yeah, I think another thing that we did talk about, and Ben, I think you talked a wee bit on this, and the last time we recorded this was like health. So like if you're going to the GP and things like that, you will find that sometimes you could go in because your toe was sore, for example, and somehow it gets brought back to the fact that you are overweight.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's annoying, and definitely a thing that I do not miss, because if you go to the GP now and you say, my chest hurts or this or that, they almost become more thorough, because the first thing they normally mention isn't mentioned, which was always, have you tried losing weight? No matter what I went in for, it was first things first, can we weigh you?
Yeah.
Can you weigh me? How degrading is that? And the last couple of times I've been in since I've lost weight, have they asked to weigh me? No. They haven't even asked that. Like before, it was the first question was, do you know how much you weigh? Are you doing any sort of physical exercise? What's your diet like? What's your sleep like? Before, and then do you want me to tell you what I'm actually here for, or are we just diagnosing me with obesity before I've even told you about my headache?
Yeah,
And that really annoyed me. And I know, obviously, we all know that obesity contributes to so many health problems and so many diseases. We know this, but it was just, again, one of those things that you don't get asked about, you don't think about it.
Yeah. In fact, I came across a TikTok video just last week, and it was a doctor who had only very recently revoked her being a GP. I'm not sure what the term for that is, but anyway, they decided that they no longer wanted to be a GP. And she was talking about how there is a bias towards, an unfair bias towards people who are overweight coming into a GP surgery. Like it just is a thing throughout the NHS, like where they are maybe not listening as well to the people who are coming in with health concerns if they are overweight, because they've already made this judgment in their mind that the reason that they're there is because their weight's contributed to that reason. So they're already not listening like they should be, which is crazy. But I can understand it, because we've probably all been there.
Oh, 100%. It's rubbish. It really, really is. But again, I do also understand it, because they're gonna take one look at you and straight away make this judgment. Not just the GP, anyone. Like we said earlier, you look at an obese person or an overweight person, and instantly your thought process is that person is unhealthy. That person eats a lot. That person's lazy. etc., etc. All these things in your head come into it before you. And actually, as a overweight, obese person that I was, I'm guilty of the same. And I can, and I know some people might feel shocked by that, but I was probably the same. And actually now I've been on this journey for however many months, and I've gone the opposite way. I look at people in a completely different way.
Yeah. And I mean, it's hardly surprising that, when you're in a bigger body, that the way that you talk to yourself, like all your internal like monologue, is so bad, because you're always in this like societal culture of like being obese you means you're lazy, it means you're, whatever. So like it's highly surprising that you then start speaking to yourself in that way, or about yourself in that way.
And I think it's safe to say that we probably still do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the way that I used to cope with a lot of like I don't know, the way that I thought people might be thinking of me, or the way that people might be looking at me. I'd make jokes about myself and about my weight, and I would, you know, it would kind of make me feel that little bit better, because I was like, well, if you can't beat them, join them, kind of thing. But it also is just so degrading as well, just having to lower yourself to that sort of, to be that joke.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
I
a
get that.
protective thing, isn't it? You're almost like, well, I'm gonna say that about myself before
Yeah.
you have a chance to think it or say it.
Yeah. Or the way that people described you, for example. So I mean, you both have met me. Me and Heather were both very tall. But I was always the bigger tall girl. Or, you know, if someone was trying to say, because there's like a multiple Sarahs that I work with, they'd be always describe me as the bigger tall girl.
Yeah.
Now they don't get that. I don't get that bigger word. I just get the tall one.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is crazy, isn't it? When
Yeah.
you think about it, you know, like people. I mean, I can laugh about it now. You're allowed to laugh and I'm saying that because it is funny. But yeah, people used to call me Big Ben. And
I just
like,
realised that the clock, isn't it, in London?
yeah, so they'd
know.
be like, oh, here comes Big Ben, like, you know. And now I'm like, yeah, I get it. But like back then, even the word big or something like that just was a trigger for me. And that's different. And I don't know if anyone listening can resonate with this, but actually, my weight has been a weird one. So I actually was, up until the age of 19, 20 years old, I was actually underweight my entire life and was always known as the anorexic, skinny. People always used to be like, you know, make kind of fun about how gaunt I looked and how ill I looked. I then started gaining weight when I met my partner, not blaming him. But I got very comfortable, and obviously I got out of my teenage years and become an adult. So from the age of 20 to 30, so a third of my life, I was then overweight and obese. So it's been a bit of a weird one for me, I know some people listening will be able to kind of identify with that because they were like a skinny kid, skinny teenager, and then overweight. Some people though will oppositely, they've always been big, and this new territory is weird to them. I don't, Heather, what was yours sort of, if you don't mind sharing, like what was yours like?
Yeah, okay. So up until I would say puberty, for me, I was always like a pretty skinny kid. Then went through puberty, started gaining weight, and then it was basically a cycle of lose a bit, gain a bit, lose a bit, lose a bit, gain a bit. So pretty much for my entire like teenage years up until now, I've been in a bigger body. So yeah, I never really had the experience until now as an adult being in this size body. Like I've never had that before, so it's very new.
That is crazy. What about you, Sarah?
Pretty much the same. I think. I mean, I look back. I found, oh my days, I found a prom photo of me. I think I was the youngest in my year, so I must have been about 15.
That always.
And my collarbone, my shoulders, everything was just so. I probably was anorexic, and I just wasn't admitting it. And then when I hit my early 20s, that's when I started to put on a little bit of weight. But again, like Heather, I was in a yo-yo of up and down with my weight, lose a bit, gain a bit, lose a bit. And then it wasn't until probably my mid to late 20s that I really, really piled it all on. But once I identified the triggers, I was then able to put steps in place to try and stop me from putting more weight on, but I could never lose the weight. It was just, I was stuck in that 16 to 16 and a half stone bracket, and I could just never get past it until June last year.
Oh.
Yeah. Incredible. Sorry if you just noticed a little jump there. We've had to just edit a little bit out, and we'll be completely transparent. Heather just went off to throttle her husband because he was making loads of noise in the background.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So yeah, there was a load of noise, and then Heather was like, "Oh, with me a second, guys."
BRB.
The joys of recording our podcast at home. But yeah, I think, to be honest with you, on reflection of what we've spoken about, it may be quite a nice natural way to wrap up today's episode.
Yeah, as always,
Um,
like if you guys have any thoughts, any opinions, any experience of this, like love to hear it. You know, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think it's a thing? Do you not? Like, love to hear what you thought.
And what we'd love to, obviously, we're going to ask every time is please comment below for things that you want us to talk about, any guests you would want us to try and get. I mean, we're not, promising anything, but, please put feedback, what you liked, perhaps if something you didn't like, any questions. You can also, we'll pop our socials. They'll pop up somewhere here, where you can drop us an email or you can message us on our social media. And next week's episode?
So next week's episode is going to be a beginner's guide to everything Manjaro. So if you are new to this medication, you don't really know where to begin, but you are thinking about taking it, then we are going to go through the basics. So join if you are thinking about it, if you're curious about it, because that will be your one-stop shop for everything Manjaro.
Absolutely. So all things like, how we first came onto it, registered providers, and supplements, and all these other things that people want to talk about and you want to know about. And I know I was curious about when I first started. So yeah, tune in then.
There will be pens to show what the actual needle sizes are, everything that literally we searched high and low for before we started will be in that one episode.
Which is super exciting, and hopefully we haven't deleted it like we deleted this episode.
No, I'm going to save it now.
Literally.
Download it, save it. Save it to back hard drive.
So much. To my wonderful, I can call you this now, my wonderful co-host, Sarah, and co-host, we're all co-hosts here, the wonderful Sarah and the gorgeous Heather. And if you are listening at home and can't see, Heather is actually sporting a little, I don't know, what would we call this, Heather?
Little waistcoat.
I'm going to say it's a waistcoat.
She's actually you're trying on some bits, aren't you, for a little country shindig we're going to?
We were talking about clothes shopping, and I'm going to this concert series thing called C2C. Some people might have heard of it. It's a big country festival. And last year, I couldn't wear anything country. I couldn't wear anything like Western style because they do not make it in a bigger size. So just what we've been talking about, basically. But this year, I'm fitting into the stuff, so you better believe it. I have bought so much stuff to try, so I'm so excited. So this is one of the things.
I like it. I like it a lot. For those of you who are listening on Spotify and not watching us on YouTube, it is a very sexy denim waistcoat with a little tie. The tied buttons. Oh, beautiful.
I think you can get away wearing just the denim waistcoat.
Oh. Hey, now you're talking.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining. And that is a wrap on episode 2.